Um, First, I'd like to thank MIT and all the sponsors, particularly Luce, who have so graciously stepped up and made this event possible. It was something that they wanted to do, I wanted to do with Ted, and I think it'll be an interesting evening. Now, since many of you already know who Ted Waitt is, he's told me that he will not be posting his birth certificate on the website. Some of you have asked if the cover art of my book is intentional, and that are you really seeing what you're seeing? And no, it's not a reflection of the baby Jesus in a slice of pizza. But yes, I did spend the first 10 years of my career as a sitcom writer in Hollywood, and I can assure you the cover is intentional. Harvey Weinstein and Miramax Pictures are considering it as their new logo, and you need to know that Weinstein and Miramax distribute Ted Waitt's new film, The Bully Project. So we will be talking about that. We're very grateful Ted's here tonight. He could have been in Cannes with Harvey. Harvey is at the moment wheeling and dealing, and I suspect also bullying. So before I go mano a mano with Ted, and who wouldn't want to spend an hour with a billionaire who's also good looking and taller than I am, I wanted to share a few thoughts with you on the past year. So first, I would like to politely express my outrage and fury at the financial engineers of 2008 through 2010. There are many sinners. Too numerous to name, but I'd like you to think as follows. AIG, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, Bank of America, Fannie and Freddie, and in honor of J.D. Salinger, Franny and Zoe, along with a whole slew of other alphabet crooks. And at that point, the point I'm making is that not one, this isn't important, but not one of the CEOs from this toxic stew of financial con artists, you can think Angelo Mazzillo, Richard Fuld, that's Lehman, not one of them has gone to jail. Not one. These guys were represented by the best and brightest legal minds in the country, among them the law firm of Robham, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe being preeminent. So in the solar system of financial chicanery, I would also include the dozens of hedge fund crooks who have bent, abused, manipulated, gamed, and conned the system, from insider trading to Ponzi schemes. And most of them have plea bargained their way out of the slammer, paid a fine, morphed and reincarnated themselves back into another fund and back in business. And it's only in the last week that the first hedge fund billionaire crook, Raj Rajaratnam, had been convicted of insider trading. For the non-lawyers in the room, I'd like to point out that there is a difference between convicted and sentenced. The interim step is appeal, and of course Raj and his legal team are going to try this detour. The only poor, dumb son of a bitch is actually in the slammer is Bernie Madoff, and he wanted to get caught and it only took 8 years. So the theme here is, why would this country actually want to have any increased financial consumer protection? My opinion is that if you want to stop white-collar crime, give each of the big boys a year in the slammer with a cellmate named Bubba. The death penalty, as we all know, is not a deterrent, but I'm willing to bet $50 that Bubba might be. As to the book, I'm There For You, Baby, I started a company. You always have to confess. We agreed we'd tell the truth. Started a company in the fall of 2008, 3 days after Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. There is a line, and one of the rules in the book is don't bet against the macro. I should have listened to myself. The company I started was called the San Diego News Network, and 2 years later I closed it up and recorded a charming tax loss carry forward. Levitt Zaks is one of the accountants for me and also one of the MIT sponsors. And what Mike has told me is that the carry forward in this case is a euphemism for forever. I will have to live to 128 to use it all up. I thought that since I could never get a job again, I should be a consultant. So I consulted with a consultant. And some of you are consultants. I was told that to be a consultant, I needed a book. You cannot consult without a book. I'll apologize in advance for any unintended arrogance, but I wrote I'm There For You, Baby, to see if I could tell the truth about this thing called the entrepreneurial spirit and how it intersects, or should intersect, with rational man behavior, an interesting topic at this time. The book was written from the perspective of someone who has only drifted in and out of that state periodically over the last 30 years. And I thought maybe I could share a few ideas that might be helpful along the way. Now, I'd like to share one thing with you. My personal favorite author is Daniel Kahneman, Dan Kahneman. He's the 2002 Nobel Prize winner in economics. And his main theme is that people should act in their own best self-interest, but often don't. Primarily because they don't really know where their best self-interests lie. So with respect to one's best self-interest, and I was really fortunate to have this in the last 48 hours, the pursuit of rational man behavior, I would like to ask only one and only one question of Mr. Strauss-Kahn and Mr. Schwarzenegger. This is the question. What were you thinking? What exactly went through your mind 30 seconds before you attacked the chambermaid? I mean, did you see yourself throwing away an entire career and the rest of your life? I mean, I love the story, $3,000 a night in the Sofitel, and he's at Rikers Island. I mean, I love it. You know, they change the sheets at Rikers Island once a month. And Arnold, what were you thinking with the housekeeper? Did you really think in the age of Twitter, et cetera, that this was going to disappear? Now, here's one of the things in entrepreneurship. Did you ever consider the risk-reward ratio? Let me tell you, the question, what were you thinking, is really code for you weren't thinking at all. So I finished writing the book, and I sent a draft to a semi-famous big shot published author who read it and kindly wrote back the following. I hated it. He hated it. He says, it has too many rules. Don't you know you can never have more than 7 rules, and 4 is preferable. My book has 223 rules, and that is only volume 1. So please allow me to share with you a few of the guideposts along your journey to entrepreneurship. Each of the rules in the book springs from a story. I won't tell the stories, but I will tell you a couple of the rules. The first 3 are simple, and they're very important. Return every email and every phone call. 2, networking as a profession, become a professional at it. You have a lot of opportunity here at MIT. Third one's a little zenny. It says you must go to every meeting and every event, in particular, the ones you know for sure will be a total waste of time. And tonight does not count. Rule 9, do not ever let a bank act as a trustee for your heirs and assignees. Rule 11, persuaders give reasons, negotiators give concessions. 28, this is for all the startup CEOs in the room. Listen closely. Dilution is relatively meaningless. One question, do you want to be rich or do you want to be king? Rule 44, do not spend investor money if there is no hope. Send it back, they will remember the kindness in the future. Rule 302, more money is lost through neurotic behavior than through bad business decisions. 79, the only thing worse than not getting what you want is getting what you want and not knowing it. And this is for the lawyers, I love them all in the room. Listen carefully. You can defer legal fees, but you cannot avoid them. And 94 is good ideas may be spoken softly, listen carefully. And so I'm going to tell one story about listening. In 1995, I started a company called Atcom Info. It was located at the corner of 4th and G in downtown. And catty corner across the street was a deli sandwich shop. Some of you may know it, the Cheese Shop. I had started this little bitty company, and I had 5 genius engineers working there at the beginning. And the day after we moved in, I went over to the cheese shop to set things up. I went in around 2 o'clock, didn't want to bother them during the rush hour, didn't want to aggravate them, asked to speak to the manager owner. His name is Tom Schutz, still there. I explained to Tom that I was starting a software company across the street. I had geniuses, and I didn't want them going out to eat lunch. So if you could just set me up with a charge account, then I could have all the geniuses order their lunch here, and they'd work at their desks, and be win-win. We don't do charge accounts, said Mr. Schutz. I said, no, you don't understand. I'll be able to give you lots of business because these guys need to write code, and they'll eat your sandwiches, and they'll stay at their desk, and it's going to be great. He says, no, you don't understand. We don't do charge accounts. I said, no, see. He says, out. That's it. We don't do charge accounts, and he points to the door. At this point, it was clear to me that we had what is known as a cool hand Luke moment. A failure to communicate. I said, look, I'm not deaf. I heard what he was saying. He was saying no to me. Now, this is an entrepreneurial rule, a prime rule. No is only a speed bump on the road to yes. So I went across the street, walked upstairs, went to my desk, took out a checkbook, and wrote a check for $1,000 made out to the cheese shop. Walked back downstairs across the street. This is a true story. Went and asked to speak to Mr. Schutz. Lady at the front counter gave me a look. She says, you could tell this was not going to be pretty. She said, I'd like to speak to Mr. Schutz. Finally, after a few minutes, grumbling and annoyed, Mr. Schutz comes out from the back of the store. He says, you again. What do you want? I thought I told you we do not do charge accounts. Very calmly. Just wanted to order a sandwich, turkey and Swiss on corn rye. And I'd like to charge it. He says, are you insane? And I hand him the check for $1,000. And then there's this monster pause. He looks at it, he looks at me, he looks at the check, he looks at me, and then the magic words. A little bit of reluctance. Mustard or mayo? This story is about listening. What he was really saying was not that he doesn't do charge accounts. He was saying he didn't think he'd get paid promptly from this new kid across the street. Now, it's true, I've had a charge account at the cheese shop, first in downtown and the one in La Jolla. It's owned by his brother Phil Schutz, since 1995, 16 years. And the only bill that I pay within 24 hours of receipt is the cheese shop. Look, I'm not stupid. I understand float and net 30 and all that jazz. But as a CEO, you are waging war, and an army travels on its stomach. And I don't want my boys ever to be hungry. And I assure you, I am never, ever, ever late with that check. So, tonight, seriously, we have the unique privilege to talk to a gentleman who has been called many things. I could stop right there. Here are a few of them. Wired magazine labeled him a true maverick, and that's no relation to the pretender from Arizona. Forbes magazine listed him as one of the handful of self-made billionaires. And Business Week, and this one matters, called him one of America's 50 most generous philanthropists. He could have been in Cannes tonight, but he's spending it with us. San Diego is blessed to simply call him our friend. Please welcome Ted Waitt. Make sure your mic's working.
My mic working? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? That was entertaining. That was good. You know?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. So, Ted, you grew up in Sioux City, Iowa.
I did.
Your father was a cattle broker and a rancher. 4 generations of cattle. So what I want to ask you is, when you were a young man, how did you end up in computers instead of knee-deep in cow shit?